السلام عليكم. الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Is belief inherited? Does one choose his or her belief himself, or is it chosen for him through inheritance from his parents and relatives? I have occasionally asked this question that if you were born in a non-Muslim country, say a predominantly Hindu or Christian country and Hindu or Christian family, would you be a Hindu or Christian today instead of being Muslim? This is a key question. Generally speaking, if a person is born in a Muslim family and a Muslim country, like it or not, he or she will be a Muslim because the parents, the society, and the country as a whole are Muslim. Now, if the same person was born in a Christian family, in all likelihood, he or she would be a Christian because he will be brought up as such by his family and his environment and the society, regardless whether he'll be practicing or not. So then the question becomes, is truth that which the society assigns to us or imposes on us as we inherit based on our conditions, family, and geography? Or is it something that we must seek individually through thinking, understanding, and contemplation? Allah says to His Messenger in the Quran, لو شاء الله ما أشركوا وما جعلناك عليهم حفيظا وما أنت عليهم بوكيل. Had Allah willed, they would not have taken false gods. He did not make you watch over them, nor are you their guardian. Chapter 6, verse 107. This means Allah left it up to them, their free will, to choose to be among the idolaters. And they're responsible for that decision, not the Prophet. Then there are verses that say the right path and wrong path both exist, and Allah could have guided us all to the right path, but He has given us the free will to choose. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ قَصْدُ السَّبِيلِ وَمِنْهَا جَائِرٌ وَلَوْ شَاءَ لَهَدَاكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. And upon Allah is the direction of the way, and among them there are ways that do not go straight. And if He willed, He could have guided you all. Chapter 16, verse 9. And then there is a verse that says, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَآمَنَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كُلُّهُمْ جَمِيعًا أَفَأَنْتَ تُكْرِهُ النَّاسَ حَتَّى يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. And if your Lord willed, all who are on the face of the earth would have believed together. Would you, O Muhammad, compel them until they are believers? Chapter 10, verse 99. In these verses, Allah says if He wanted, all would have been Muslims, believers, and with the best of Iman. But He did not want it by jabr or compulsion. He created man with free will. That is why He asks His messenger, do you want to compel them, force them to believe against their own will? Hence, Allah gave us the free will to choose our belief, our aqidah, not by force, not by inheritance, but by choice using our intellect, power of reason, and reflections. You see, conviction is not something that can be imposed or inherited. Let's put it another way. Let's say in the Day of Judgment, in Qiyamah, a Christian, a Hindu, or follower of any other faith, and a Muslim will be brought in front of Allah to answer for their deeds and their deviated or superstitious belief, aqidah. Their deviated or superstitious beliefs, aqidah. The Christian says, I was born and brought up in a Christian family, and I learned my aqidah, belief, by watching my parents and the society. The Hindu comes forward and says the same thing. Then the Buddhist, then the Jew, then the Zoroastrian, saying the same thing. Finally, the Muslim comes forward and says, I was born and brought up in a Muslim family, and I learned my aqidah, belief, by watching my parents and the society. Do you think the Muslim will be told, here, enter Jannah and paradise because you call yourself a Muslim? Of course not, because the proof, the reason, the argument for the truth has already been presented by God. He has already made his case, not just to Muslims, but people of all faiths. Those who have not heard it, of course, for valid reason, God will not hold them responsible. Furthermore, Iman and the Quranic Aqidah, belief, can be attained only through due diligence of the individual, through efforts in thinking and reflecting upon verses of the Quran, verses about the creation of the universe and the nature, verses about creation of man, verses about purpose of life, and so forth. This is why we see multiple verses in the Quran that invite man to think, to ponder, to use his intellect, to use his mind, and not copy or imitate his family, his forefathers. Why? Because they could be wrong. Or even his society, as the Quran reminds us. بَلْ قَالُوا إِنَّا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَى أُمَّةٍ وَإِنَّا عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. No, they say, indeed we found our fathers following a religion, and we are guided by their footsteps. We're just following our parents' beliefs. And next verse says, the history repeats itself. And when we send them a warner, a messenger, they repeat the same thing through the wealthy class who usually has the power and influence on the poor and masses. So the verses includes them. This verse includes them. وَكَذَلِكَ مَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ فِي قَرْيَةٍ مِّن نَذِيرٍ إِلَّا قَالَ مُتْرَفُوهَا إِنَّا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَى أُمَّةٍ وَإِنَّا عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ مُقْتَدُونَ. Just in the same way, whenever we sent a warner before you to any people, the wealthy ones among them said, we found our fathers following a certain religion, and we will certainly follow in their footsteps. Chapter 43, verses 22 and verse 23. 22 and 23. This is an absurd and baseless argument. It shows them to be content to follow their ancestors without thinking about or looking into the basis of their actions. Islam rejects such abject following in the footsteps of ancestors. Every action should be determined on the basis of deliberate thinking and conscious choice. They are blind to everything other than following in their forefathers' footsteps. They close their minds to any new evidence, rejecting any new way, even though it may be better, rely on solid argument and bring better results. We all know there is no word above God's word. And Allah says, one who seeks the truth, he will certainly come to it. The Holy Quran is such a valuable resource that even one verse provides guidance. As it says, one who strives to be guided puts in the effort to learn and think, Allah will surely guide him. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And those who strive in our cause for the truth, we will certainly guide them to our paths. Indeed, Allah is with the right doers. Chapter 29, verse 69. The lam in the term لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ points to the certainty that without a doubt, for sure, Allah will guide those who make the effort, guaranteed. And that small effort is what sets you apart from the rest. Others do not make such effort, hence do not qualify for His guidance. Unlike some advanced mathematical derivation, Iman and belief are not complicated and hard to reach or understand. It just requires a little due diligence with some thinking and reflection on God's signs and footprint in one's self and in the universe. Belief, aqidah, is not reached by copying or imitation, rather by thinking and contemplation, checked by Qur'an's standard. Generally speaking, the standard is God's word, not man's word. When it comes to matter of belief, aqidah, there are several very important points to consider. Number one who is seeking the truth, the true belief, he should not sit and wait, so somehow it lands on his lap without any research or effort on his part, or somehow think he is on the right path by imitating others. He should take the first step. Number two, when it comes to the matter of belief, aqidah, it is not something you can sweep under the rug or ignore or set aside. It is the most important and the most fundamental decision you make in your life, because it is what decides choosing between the, paradise, Jannah, and hell. Therefore, one cannot take it lightly and should dedicate some time to work on his aqidah. And all these lectures are really to put us on this mode of thinking. It is interesting that when we want to buy a car or a house, we spend so much time in assessing the market price, which dealer, the color, the features, the quality, the neighborhood, in the case of house, etc., etc. And these are things that won't last or we leave behind when we die. Or in a matter of our physical health, which exercise should I do? Which vitamins, supplements to take regularly? What to do or not to do? Which is all good, yet when it comes to our spiritual health and our next life, do we spend as much time and due diligence? Number three, disobeying God, disbelieving His revelation and His enjoyments does not take away a bit from His majesty, His greatness and lordship, nor does it impact His universal order. Surely, our disbelief does not impact the order of nature. Days and nights will come and go without any disruption, just like a patient who will only get better by seeking medical help through a doctor. If he does not go to the doctor, he will only be hurting himself, not the doctor. Number four, be careful. Be careful. Every person decides on his own and be accountable in the matter of belief and aqidah. In the day of judgment, Qiyamah, I bear the sole responsibility for my aqidah, and other people are not responsible for my aqidah. What I believed in this life Hence, my aqidah must be connected to the strongest, most solid foundation, which is the Quran. The words, reports, and opinions of other human beings, leaders of the faith, imams, scholars of science, and philosophers cannot be cited or referenced or presented as a proof in the Day of Judgment. We can only reference the Quran to Allah because it is His words. Number 5, when it comes to reading the Quran, when looking to find the true guidance, when we're looking to find the true guidance, one has to read it in such a way to let Quran show him the right path. And do not even start with preconceived notions, assumptions, or certain intentions or opinions, because then he will start to impose his own idea and opinion onto the Quran and try to justify them through its verses, which means he will end up leading the Quran rather than letting Quran lead him. A determined person who has a solid goal and a purpose in life will compare his life's path and his aqidah with the Quran, and courageously and unbiasedly will throw away any part of his view, his opinion or aqidah he inherited from his parents, or throw away any teachings that do not agree with the Quran. Furthermore, because we're still talking about aqidah here, furthermore, he will use the Quran to fix any shortcoming and misunderstanding he has. So he will end up with a balanced aqidah in 100% agreement with the Quran. We must seek support from the Quran in a way that in every portion of our iman and aqidah, we can cite Quran as a source, or a source derived from the Quran. We need this reference. So these are the most important steps or points to consider as we draw our life roadmap for this life and the next. Problems occur when people interpret the verses of the Quran based on their own opinion, tafsir bil-ra'i. In other words, imposing their own or others' opinions, historical events on the Quran, or try to justify these opinions with the Quranic verses. Unfortunately, we have many people in our societies that think only special individuals have knowledge about the deen. Hence, they should think for rest of the people. They should think for rest of the people. As these individuals tell them, since no one understands the Quran except us, and since we have studied it and understood it, you must follow us. Be what they call, be our muqallid. Hence, there's no need to think about belief anymore. We already done it for you. Therefore, people choose to learn an aqidah based on taqleed, following and imitating, rather than tahqiq, study and research. If the Quran was meant to be for special people, who only they understood its principles and only they had knowledge of it, then it would have been revealed just to these individuals, special individuals. Where in fact, Quran has been revealed to the entire mankind, where the old or young, man or women, child or adult can benefit from it. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. And we have indeed made the Quran easy to understand and remember. Then is there any that will receive admonition? Is there any that will remember? Chapter 54, verses 17, 22, 39, and 40. Indeed, learning and teaching about oneness of God, principles of faith, and one's duties from the Quran is very easy. However, being a true follower and keeping one's duty toward God is for the true servants of Allah. Quran is a miracle that Allah has promised to keep intact and has been so since it was revealed, free of any distortion or contradiction. It is the only authority for human belief and aqidah, as certified by Allah Himself. إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. Indeed, it is we who sent down the Quran, and we surely guard it or watch over it. Chapter 15, verse 9. Or, وَاتْلُوا مَا أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ كِتَابِ رَبِّكَ لَا مُبَدِّلَ لِكَلِمَاتِهِ وَلَنْ تَجِدَ مِنْ دُونِهِ مُلْتَحَدًا. And recite and teach what has been revealed to you of the book of your Lord. No one can change His words, and none will you find as a refuge other than Him. Chapter 18, verse 27. Or, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدَ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. Will you not then ponder on the Quran, think about Quran, reflect on it? If it had been from other than Allah, they would have found therein much contradictions. Chapter 4, verse 82. In the day of resurrection, Qiyamah, the noble messenger of God, alayhi salam, will complain about people who abandoned the Quran. As he says, وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ يَا رَبِّي إِنَّ قَوْمِي اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. When the messenger will say, O my Lord, truly my people abandoned this Quran. They abandoned this Quran for foolish nonsense. Chapter 25, verse 30. Quran has become something of a symbol for many, unfortunately. They use it only in a funeral or a wedding. They make fancy copies made and written in gold. They make exhibits for the Quran, yet no knowledge of what's inside or no following of what's inside. Our Prophet alayhi salam, our Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, for 23 years endured all the hardship, wars, exiles, hunger, and threats against Muslims' lives and possessions, so he can deliver the message of God to people. Today, we have those who spend hours and hours to make money, spend time on leisure and vacations, or even study, yet they don't bother to spend few minutes on studying few verses of the Quran with ta'ammul, concentration and contemplation. The issue of belief, iman, and aqidah is something each individual has to invest from his personal and precious time to learn and think about. Again, I say this because we still have people in many societies that think there are others to think and decide for them instead of using their own intellect to understand and think. Instead, they go to these so-called special people or clergy, and that is one of the main problems. God has clearly stated in the Quran that I must reflect on, think about creation of heavens and earth, on verses of Quran itself, and on man's creation. in order to form my belief, my aqidah, and did not say to ask someone else to think for me. I have to think myself. Unfortunately, many people have mistaken the principles of faith and aqidah with principles of fiqh, laws and jurisprudence, and think that principles of faith are as complex as the principles of fiqh. One's aqidah is based on one's own diligence, thinking and reflection, and cannot be copied from the parents, a scholar, nor the society. Now, if someone wants to learn about inheritance law in Islam or transaction law in Islam, he needs to go to fiqh scholar or a book of fiqh. But if someone wants to truly understand what does it mean to believe in oneness of God, Tawheed, then he needs to think for himself with the help from the Quran. Obviously, there are people who never miss their prayers. They always fast in Ramadan or do other acts of worship and often give in charity. However, if their aqidah, belief, is mixed with shirk, their deeds are mixed with shirk, then the first thing they are going to be asked for and responsible for is, why did they not examine their belief system? Why did they do such and such, which is considered an act of shirk? Why did they believe in and act based on some verses of the Quran and not others? Therefore, perhaps it won't hurt if we re-examine our belief, aqidah, once more without any bias. You do not want surprises that day. You can think of it like you are in a class where you have been given an official syllabus and a textbook for which you are responsible for in the final exam, which is a final given to all regions by Department of Education. You then get a teacher who comes in and starts teaching from his own notes, some of which are from the book, but mostly from outside the assigned textbook. Now, when the final exam arrives, a foolish student, a naive student, studies just the teacher's notes, ignoring the textbook. But a smart student, in addition to teacher's note, studies the entire textbook on his own. In the final day, students realize all the questions were designed from the textbook material and none from the teacher's notes. Who is the winner here? When it comes to matter of belief and aqidah, the Noble Quran is the same as the textbook in above example for us. Yes, there are things like fiqh and traditions on how to worship or do certain things, etc. We can refer to material outside the Quran. Even then, they must, by the way, be derived from the Quran as the primary source or in agreement with it. But when it comes to our belief and aqidah, we must really utilize the Quran, contemplate and think so we can reach our own individual conclusion and aqidah. Why is it that Allah in the Quran invites people to think about the creation of heavens and the earth, man's own creation? Why does thinking and contemplation is highly valued in the Quran? Here are a few examples. كتاب أنزلناه إليك مبارك ليدبروا آياته وليتذكر أولو الألباب. Here is a book which we have sent down to you, full of blessings, that you may ponder, think on its signs, and that man of understanding may reflect. Chapter 38, verse 29. هذا بلاغ للناس ولينذروا وليعلموا أنما هو إله واحد وَلِيَذَّكَّرَ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. This is a clear message for mankind in order that they may be warned thereby and that they may know that He is the only one deity, so that people of understanding may take heed, may reflect. Ulul albab means people who think and those with knowledge. Only those who study and gain knowledge will understand. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. Indeed, the creation of the heavens and the earth and the difference of night and day, there are indeed signs for men of understanding, for those who understand. Chapter 3, verse 190. There are over 1,000 verses in the Quran regarding the creation of human and other things. Indeed, the whole universe in which Allah invites mankind to think, to reflect, to understand, to do, to do what? To understand for what? To form his belief, his aqidah. Surely, man cannot ignore his own creation and creation of his surroundings and just preoccupy himself blindly with just eating and sleeping, leisure and lust. You cannot replace an intellectual life with one that is just about satisfying animal-like urges. The value of man is for his thoughts, his reflections, his mind, and his ideology. And throughout history, those individuals who were considered thinkers, those with sense of purpose, have been highly regarded and well respected by people. Consider two persons, one blind and the other one with sight. If the blind all of a sudden decides to cross the freeway, he will for sure get into an accident. Now, if the person with sight also decides to cross the freeway, but with his eyes shut, closed, he will for sure get into an accident as well. And in this specific instance, there's no difference between him and the blind person. Using one's mind, aql, and intellect is the same thing. If a person does not use his aql, intellect, he is just like the one who does not have intellect at all, or a crazy person. Generally speaking, when a person reaches the mental maturity, he starts setting goals for his life and starts moving toward achieving these goals. Some people plan for short-lasting goals, goals that might give temporary pleasure but eventually disappear. Some others plan for long-term goals, long-lasting goals. Allah wants us to set these goals through understanding the horizons of existence, creations in the universe, creation of ourselves, and by thinking and reflecting on ourselves, not by emotions, but just thinking and reflecting. Despite all we discussed above, there are still people who have trouble accepting the above points because they do not think of themselves worthy or intelligent enough to examine and think about their own aqidah. with the aid of Quran, of course. Our suggestion to such individuals is that even though digestion and processing of above facts may not be easy for them, please consider taking a sincere look at their belief system and reflect on these facts through an unbiased and truth-seeking lens. And don't forget Allah's promise of guidance. Ask yourself, is this Aqidah in agreement with the Quran? Does it even make sense? Is it rational? Do not be among those who just want to forget, like a bad accident, or just want to ignore such an important life-changing task, which is choosing the true Aqidah. A person who is afraid that by studying, thinking, and re-examining he might lose his Aqidah, one that he inherited or copied from others, and may not be able to defend it, he never had a true Aqidah. And it was merely a delusion, a misgiving. I repeat, a person who is afraid that by studying, thinking, and re-examining, he might lose his Aqidah, one that he inherited or copied from others, or may not be able to defend it, he never had a true Aqidah, and it was merely a delusion, a misgiving. Trust me when I say there are many non-Muslims who tell me after they learn about Islam that Islamic belief, its tenets and premise all make sense and are in line with reality of life. Therefore, when a non-Muslim makes such a statement, when we have a true faith that gives us such a sound and rational Aqidah, what are we afraid of? What are we afraid to find out if we do some soul searching with our present belief and Aqidah? We ask Allah to make us among those who have come to Islam through diligence and understanding, not just inheritance. We ask Allah to make us among those who do care and make our goals long-term for the everlasting hereafter, and help us be ready for that day of accountability. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asri innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu ala man ittaba'a al huda.